Thank you.
Who is handling our media affairs here, along with Madam here, Mema, for pushing us to do this. When Chris told me about this, I said, obviously, I'm a friend of the media and I like to make sure we always have interaction and engagement with the media. But more than anything else, it's important that the Liberian people get to know every step of the way, what we're doing, what the prospects are for any stage of our work, and what that means for us as we move along. Because, this is more of an inclusive process, one that requires everyone's input, suggestions, recommendations, all hands on deck, as the post say. So I said to Chris, absolutely, I'm fully agreeable, except that I want to ensure that we did it in an organized fashion. And Chris assured me, that, of course, it will be organized. So when you hear Chris say, I was a little bit reluctant, not because I don't want to meet the press, but also because I want to make sure, the Liberian people get a fair share of what we're doing here. So on that note, I really want to welcome you all to the offices of, the World Economic Crimes Court, charged with the responsibility to lead the establishment of the World Economic Crimes Court, as well as the Anti-Corruption Court. The individuals here, of course, are my colleagues. This is Attorney Williams, Archie. That's Attorney Bami, Frederick. Councillor Bami, Frederick. And that's Councillor Asaduba Kenneth. These people and others join me here to work together to ensure that at least we can carry the process forward. I'm sure our conversation today is really, as I said it, a conversation. Just so we have some little talk, and we'll see how we move forward. But with emphasis that the Liberian people have a right to know what we're doing here and how we are proceeding. So I say welcome to the offices of the World Economic Crimes Court establishment.
Thank you for inviting us here. Liberian being Liberia, I have my own doubts for the commitment and preparedness of Liberia to establish a World Economic Crimes Court. I don't know whether they put it in the scale of priority projects or not. Because when I came here first, I came here before you. I see people ready to undertake such a project with such political and social implications. If you want it, you must fund it. In the village, you want somebody to clear your farm, you gotta start clearing it first. So I have my own doubts, though I want it. I want us to bring to closure the carnage we brought on ourselves. But it is one thing to say you want to bring it to closure. It's quite another thing to say you are prepared to bring it to closure. We've come this road before. Successive governments have made the pledge that they will have the establishment of this World Economic Crimes Court. It has never been actualized. So that's the basis of my doubt. But with JMB, start knowing, I think it might happen. When? I just don't know. But it might happen. Again, the caliber of people that we man this process are the caliber of people I've seen around here. I think this is my first time interacting with you. This is when myself came back 20 years ago. The councillor, the leader were there, we knew each other for a rack of ages. On the part of my institution, Sky, we gave it our fullest cooperation. with Chris on board and Archie, my friend, we give it our fullest cooperation because the intent is good for our country. We gotta put this thing behind us with the appropriate steps taken so that it doesn't reoccur, and we cooperate as much as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Babu, and the other members of your team. I thought this was a privilege to invite us here to have a fair appreciation, no worries about the work you intend to do for the country. I think this is what all of us want. If you went across the country, and the journalists would say if you were doing a first pop talking to different persons, you get to realize that a very good portion of our population will recommend the establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Court. I think this is a priority for the country. I also thought it was important for the government to be intentional about it. So we can't just be talking War Crimes Court. It involves a lot of things, money involved. The government got to be honest. Honesty in this context would mean they got to be intentional about it to support this process so that we close the whole chapter once and for all. So, like Big Brother said, at the level of OKFM, we look forward to working with you. We're committed to this process. But I wanted you to drill us a little bit. I know you came as a result of a competitive process, which is good. So I would like to know where we are as a War Crimes Court, as an office. What's next? Where are we? What are the next steps? And so that we have, like I said, an appreciation, because this is something that all of us want to run with on the radio. We will always contact you through Chris. We will always want to know about the issues. We sometimes it may sound political, but it's not political, because when the government, if it appears like the government is not providing the kind of support we think it should provide, then people like us will be very intentional about it, because we believe this is the process. You can't do it alone. All of you are people of good moral character. That's why you are where you are in these different offices. But it takes the government, and it's because even if the partners are willing to put some money there, I'm sure they will be waiting to see what the government is going to do. The government will have to take the step. The government, and thank you. I see that you people just starting, again, everything boils down to the foundation or anything. But thank you. It's a good start, and we look forward to always interacting with you. As time goes by, when things get set up, through Chris, you can think about a particular radio program, because this thing is technical. It's not just anybody thing to just be talking. Anything a legal thing. So about it, you just talk. So when we develop different programs and different things to bring experts like you to come and talk about it, people will have an appreciation other than the regular thing in the street where everybody just assume everybody's a lawyer, everybody's an expert. Then we'll go let something slip out of our hands. But you have our support as an institution. Yeah.
Appreciate that very much. Big brother, just I appreciate that as well. I mean, I don't know what I know you have anything to say, but as I said, I like to keep this very conversational so that, we can have exchange of views as we go on. But of course, we will provide you a little bit of background as to where we came from and where we are. So I don't know whether you have any comments to make before we go to the background. Are you okay? All right. So first thing, as I say, is we want to make sure the Liberian people follow this process very well. It is their process. As I've said repeatedly, I don't see this as a job. I see this as a national service, one that is meant to make this country and not to break the country. So our focus is on peace, genuine peace and reconciliation, such that people's voices must be heard. Typical example will be the victims and the groups that represent the victims. They're very critical to this process. That is the reason why we've been engaging, victim organizations, because we believe that somebody is speaking for them, has been speaking for them before. Their voices may not have been heard in the past as they wished. This time around, we're committed to ensuring that their voices are heard. They are an integral part of this process as we go on. Some victims may not be concerned with prosecution. They may be concerned with making them better again in terms of reparation. We need to know that. Others may be concerned about prosecution. We also need to know that. Civil society organizations themselves have been working in this line, So we have to engage them as we go on. You from the media, you have had your own role to play. And as I say to people all the time, the media is very powerful. Very, very powerful. We see you as partners in this process, because what we're doing here right now, the world will get to know it because of you. I can't sit in this building and have a conversation and think that the world will know it just because I said it if you don't broadcast it. And that is why we need you as a partner. With respect to where we came from, I was appointed, and the release, was made to the Liberian people on November 1, that the president had appointed me, and it took immediate effect. In other words, the appointment came from an executive order, and therefore it didn't require confirmation hearing. So that's why the president's letter was clear, that my appointment took immediate effect. Well, I was dean of the law school when I was appointed, so then, I had to play that, balancing game quickly. So the first thing I had to do was to consider how, I would transition from the law school to this, new service. So I had to have, a meeting with the acting president of the university to respectfully inform him of my appointment, even though he may have heard it on radio, and that because of this appointment, I will not be in a position to continue to serve as dean. As much as it was a difficult, decision to make on my part, and of course to accept on his part, but both of us reasoned that, look, this is for the country, and this is for generations to come. And this clearly is, an expression of confidence in you to lead this process. Who wouldn't want to serve his country at any higher level? So then, we agreed that I would tender my resignation. Just needed to do a few things to make sure the school did not, just stop. So we did that, and so, I tendered my resignation from the position. So I'm not dean of the law school anymore. So once in a while, people say, kind of contact me for, some information, but no, I make sure I send that directly to the acting dean. All right. So since I took over, it became clear that we cannot sit and just say, well, we're waiting for the government, to bring dollars and cents. And the reason is, my letter of appointment says specifically that I also have responsibility to look out there for resources, because the government cannot do all. And I agree with you. The government should certainly be in the lead in terms of supporting this process. So I had a meeting with the Minister of Justice, and he assured me fully of the government's support and the government's respect for the independence of this office. I think the government, in a very strong way, has had a hands-off approach in terms of don't interfere with the work. Allow them to do their work. Allow them to ensure what they are doing is what they've planned to do. But there is a coordination. I coordinate with the ministry so that at least the government is aware, just as the people of Liberia, should be aware of what we're doing. So that coordination is there. The second thing I thought to do was to ensure that, we had a relationship with other institutions and other interested persons and organizations. So the civil society organizations, as I said, the victims groups, I've had meetings with them, and we're on course. And I open up to them very well in terms of our recruitment process for the initial staff, because we can't have everybody at once. And to recruit the staff was a tough, process. First, I had to ensure that the people I bring on board understand and are ready to make some real serious national sacrifices. And that included, coming to work early and leaving work late, willing to read, dossiers of papers, meetings in many places, and sometimes even sacrificing by using their own, assets, computers, and other things. Because, it was not automatic. But again, as I said to the minister when I took over, we only had an executive summary as the asset from the previous team. So we didn't have anything from the previous team, not a chair, not paper, not any report, but executive summary of the activities, And so that's all we had. In other words, we had to start from scratch. Everything was absolutely new here, meaning we didn't even have an office space. So everything you see here right now is our own effort, informing the government of what we're doing. And I want to say thanks to the government for accepting that we can occupy this building, because the GSA came over, checked the building, assessed it very well, and approved the lease. So the payment process, is ongoing. I expect that will be done or completed soon. So we thank the government for that. And I also thank the government for its expression of commitment to support this process. I agree with you when you say, it shouldn't be words only. At this stage, I don't think it's words only. I think there is that, serious commitment to do this, to move with it. And I appreciate your comment also that with the president, this is going to happen. I can affirm that as well because the president has assured me that this is something that he wants to see happen in his time, not just because of legacy, but because it's necessary for the people of the country. So I stand on that to do the things that we're doing here. So as we, have been coming along for a month, we've been trying to see how we can source, low support here, low support there, even if, it's on some sort of liability, basis. But we inform the government or through the Ministry of Justice of everything that we've been doing here so far. So I think at this point, we have succeeded in at least developing a first stage of the framework for where we're going. And where we're going is to ensure that this office is structured in a way that we can account to people. So what do we do? Because it is a war and economic crimes court and an anti-corruption court process, we have to ensure that we divide the office in that kind. So we have, a war crimes section. We have an economic crime section under the War and Economic Crimes Division. We have an anti-corruption section under the Anti-Corruption Division, broken down. But we also have a research and operations section or division, which is important for us. There's no way we can do this work without extensive and exhaustive research. We're talking about years before we've had this, process in terms of exchanging arms since 20 plus years. How do we get information if we don't have a very strong research division? Fortunately, we have somebody who is well versed in research and who agreed to join us. So we have put that process into motion. In putting that process into motion, I immediately had to do a few things. One of them was with him to take a first trip around a few places, in the country. So we've been able to visit Magibi, we visited Bon, we visited Nimba recently, we visited Lofa, we had a little drag into Grand Bassa, just having some pep talks here and there, getting some feel as to what things are like, what people are thinking. And I'd like to say, I really confirm what you said in terms of the population opting for the establishment of a War and Economic Crimes Court. I see that fully well, we spoke to a lot of people who believe that, well, yeah, it has lasted too long, but still we don't have a closure. We need a closure to this. So that also gave us the impetus, to move forward. I think we're in that direction. We also have been setting up our financial aspect, because clearly the government, even if the government alone were providing the funds, right, and the support financially, we still have to account. If you're going to establish an anti-corruption court and you yourself you corrupt, what moral standing do you have to lead a process of that? And the way to show that, no, you're serious about this is to be very transparent and accountable. Fortunately, I'm an accountant myself for years, but we recruited a very, very seasoned accountant, one who has worked with the JSC, and so he's leading our financial aspect. He's been able to develop an accounting internal control system. We have informed the government about that. Now we are in the process of getting somebody from the internal audit agency who will be stationed here, so that that person can review all of our papers before we even go further to completing any transaction that we have, because we want to make sure from the beginning it's right. So while we are still trying to build the office, we're also looking in that direction of having a space for that person, a desk, a chair, independently, so that that person is not subject to any undue influence and doesn't report to me as executive director, but is only in our building to help us move forward. At the same time, I've said repeatedly that it is just important that we always have somebody from the media, so we'll be open, to the public, and people have a right, based on our suggestion box idea, to submit suggestions, their observations, anything that they have concern about, so we can ensure this process is participatory. We will not subject ourselves to any undue influence. You see, it doesn't mean that we will not ask people for help. Let me say, clearly, that the international community has shown very strong will to support us in this process, because we've had several meetings with them, the U.S. Embassy, the U.K., the Swedish, the Swiss, ECOWAS, you name them. All of these people have really been, coming in, and we've been talking. One thing we have emphasized is that this is a Liberian process. It will be driven by Liberians. They may provide support, but their support will be to augment what the government provides. Even if their support is 20 times more than the government of Liberia, it should be to support what the government has, and not to tower the government's support in a way that then they will be thinking about, well, we provide the money, so we direct the process. I'm happy to report to the Liberian people that every international partner that we have spoken with has emphasized that they will not get involved in any way to direct this process. So I'm happy about that. Yeah. So in my mind, we're on course, There are resource constraints everywhere. Again, today I had, some confirmation from the Ministry of Justice that they're doing all they can to ensure that the government remains on top of the support process. And I'm happy about that. I believe, those promises will turn into real fruits in a short time. The other thing we've done is to say, look, we don't have all the expertise. While we'll be talking about desk and chairs and everything else that will make this office to, function, we cannot do so without thinking about capacity building. Those who man this office must have, appreciable knowledge, understanding, and appreciation of what it's all about and how we proceed. So in that direction, we have also spoken with our partners with friends for technical assistance so that we can move forward in a way that we don't, make foreseeable mistakes. I'm not saying we'll not make mistakes or we'll not have errors. Everyone will have errors, but we just want to be sure that any error or mistake we can avoid, we should avoid them and not run into them, especially when we have the opportunity, to identify them, to see that they're coming and we can cross over them. On that note, we've been able to arrange as a first step visit, a short with Sierra Leone and Liberia when it comes to Sierra Leone war crimes process. A former president of Liberia, President of Mr. Taylor, was taken to that court. And so it's good for us to have a little bit of understanding. How did you establish your court? What were the issues that you were concerned about? How did it turn out? What happened in the process? What today, if you were to start the process over, you will not do, you will avoid, or you will insist on doing. So a delegation is departing, tomorrow to Sierra Leone for a few days to sit with the members there, and speak with them. Then one will ask the question, but you're just going to go see the court and come back? No. There are other actors in Sierra Leone that we should be able to talk to. One is the Liberian community. There are Liberians in Sierra Leone. There are victims from our war in Sierra Leone. There are people who are interested, may not necessarily be Liberians, in providing some support or at least following the process. So we've laid all of those out very well so that the visit, will bear so much fruit that when we'll come back, at least we'll say, yes, this trip was instructive. So tomorrow we go on there, it's going to be there for a few days, and then we're back. And then we'll see how we measure that as against where we are. So let me stop there. As I say, it's conversational. So
I think you spoke well. I see it. I see the passion, to do what you want to do, and we should have no doubt in the caliber of people we see here. I've heard a lot about her, all of you. Now, we've been talking, I've not seen him before, but I think you have a good thing. And once, like I said again, this is something that the country really, we want to turn this chapter. So it's a good thing. You go to Sierra Leone, probably you want to go to Rwanda, you want to go to other places, depending on, what you want to do, open it up, and our kind of role will be, to buttress your effort, appeal to the government to lend you support, because I insist that in the absence of support from the government and partners, it will be difficult. This is a very expensive process. There will come a time you will want to go to some of the remote places in the country for particular reasons, how to gather facts, to gather evidence. It takes a lot of time, but I think you will have the kind of support you need, because this is a Liberian process. And I see the commitment on the part of, I know I've been privileged to sit with a lot of these U.S. government officials on many occasions, and I think they really want the process to be a Liberian process. And all of us should have no doubt that our partners and the government will support. Me personally, I want to see giant practical steps on the part of the government. Then we'll say, yes, we are running with this thing. The Ministry of Justice, everybody, the government, because that's our own thing. When we start putting our money, so now you go ask people for money, they can say, but what have you done? Initially, what have you done? You must be able to firstly say to the person, as part of efforts to ensure this is done, we are honest about it, this is what we've done. And let's follow the process and see. But again, you have our commitment. We really need to work with this War Crimes Court office to promote your work, and let us know what you think we can do together.
So, for me, I love to see practical stuff. I love to see stuff going on, because this thing has eluded us for years. I think everybody, every Liberian wants this closure. My father was beheaded right before his wife's on a Friday morning. Sometimes you want to get it over with. You want to put it behind you, but when you see this guy who did it, he passes by you, and as if he's not doing anything, you have the urge to want to retaliate, but that's not a fair way to go. It will be a vicious circle. I would admonish you people, if the government is not prepared to take that first giant step, go in your office, pack your files, I'll see you. Yesterday I was doing something on the radio concerning the War Crimes Court. Because I came here before. I came in this building before. And I heard that was a building. I said, but the council got a lot of work to do because that place is just like one school in Lanco Lepe, but practically there's nothing. If they would have made that huge sacrifice, it must have worth their while. We got to be committed. In this process, the way I see it, you want total independence, total non-interference. That's the only way the truth will come up. If we support people and prosecute some other people, then the vicious circle will continue. I was talking to some guys on the radio today that we got to be tolerant. The kind of experience we're getting with Prince Johnson. Liberian people in their mind was Prince Johnson was the guy who must go to the World Economic Crimes Court. There are different angles and different facets of the World Economic Crimes Court. Prince Johnson part might be different, but they all, if you sum them together, economic crimes and crimes against humanity, all fall into that same World Crimes Court. We gotta be tolerant. And I was telling them this morning, people from Nimba will say Prince Johnson was their hero, and they're right to say he was their hero because the sort of stuff actually have compiled, the stuff we saw before the war really picked up, headless bodies in the street, the Lutheran massacre. People gotta appreciate what Prince Johnson, the sacrifice he made. On the other side of the coin, there were guys that got nothing to do with the war, that got killed in the hands of PYJ. You got to understand their history, their happiness for the death of this guy, which is abnormal. But that's how they think they will come to closure with this. So this is a national challenge. It's a national challenge that we should put everything into it. We had the opportunity to go to Accra. I've gone to Sierra Leone before, but we were doing Democracy Radio. When the media, we had just come from the war, we didn't trust how the media was reporting, so they wanted African Democracy Radio. But we went to Sierra Leone. Where would it be based? So we started in Sierra Leone, but the president of Sierra Leone said, but you can't sit down here and talk bad about African leaders when I'm here. So that was the end. You can ask Snyder, that's how we left that course until they took it around and make a different nomenclature to it. Your job is huge. You will make a lot of enemies. But if your conscience said you right, it's a national call to duty, do it. You will not please anybody. You can't please all of us. So your commitment will say, am I prepared for this? Do I stand the consequences? Can I make the sacrifice? Do it. I would admonish you that if we talk with GMB, the partners will not interfere. You want total hands off. Do what you train to do if we're totally serious about it. If we miss this opportunity, it will be another talk shop. We just come talk about it and just leave it. Give your service to your country that will be worthwhile. And tomorrow when we're rewriting history, We said there was a group of guys that sacrificed their time to bring it to this closure. In the absence of this, Pablo, there's nothing we can do. We build in this because it carries the ingredients of impunity in our national life, in our lives, the service. That aspect of impunity will go. Yeah. They put what happened to it. They put what. That's why our country the way it is. The Maun you see, the report I want the Maun you see. Why Babu they against me? Why you after me? You gotta do it. I think we went to the villages. Like I said, my friend, we prepare to go with you anywhere. The story must be told. The hard question must be asked, and the people must participate. This is my first time to get my service today, so I had the temptation to do it. Before, I would not call names, and I never thought it was serious. So, we get our stars and we work because of the kind of revenue and we take most time. In my mind, what I'm doing is right. We'll push it. I will push the government. I'll be critical of the government. The government is slow, we make them do one fast. Or let them forget about it. I'm prepared to do this. Thank you.
You know, as what I said, this reminds me of our conversation with the EU, and again, I must say, they're really serious about Liberia taking charge. And they're also very serious about the fact that they understand fully well that they cannot play the role that Liberia should play. And the ambassadors from all of these countries have said this repeatedly. And ourselves have never said that clearly. There's nothing wrong with bringing all of the suggestions on the table. And so don't modify. Bring any suggestion you have on the table. Bring it from any expert group or from any else of the expertise. Bring it to the table. But we tailor every suggestion to decisions that will be Liberian decisions. That way, as our country say, we take ownership of what has resulted from the process. And that's where we are. And I believe that will happen, you know. In other words, therefore, would I just want to be like, all right, we'll take it from Liberia here, we'll go all in the villages and towns, you know, around Liberia, and I say, no. We intend, I say, you know, be very intentional. We are very intentional about taking this process beyond Liberian borders. Because the diaspora has a role to play. There were many people who fled this country because of the war. There were others who, during the process of fleeing, they didn't make it. Yet there were others who left their people behind. And today, you know, they have no way of accounting for those people, left their properties. I mean, everyone got affected in a way. So they're abroad. What happens to them if we do not engage them? So another way to go about this is, you know, to say, all right, so we have a group of people in, say, Canada, for example, right? But the Liberians, and they have a Liberian group, they have a Liberian community, they have their leadership. We must get in touch with the leadership. And we must inform the leadership of what we're doing. And then, as much as possible, have somebody who represents us there. I mean, what if I were traveling from here to the States? And clearly, I'm ED for this process, right? This office. Do I expect to go to the States and organize people and call them and say, I'm here, I want to meet Liberian community? Not aside. Even before thinking about buying it, in fact, booking my travel, it must be clear that yes, I'm going to, you know, state X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to meet these people because others are there working on that. Yes. That's how we think it should be, and that's what we've been doing and discussing seriously. You got to pay all the sales so that people don't necessarily have to see me or any of these members all of the time to understand this process is on course. Somebody will be there and say, no, it's on course because I have the pieces of information in my hands and we're moving along. So that they too will have their input, you know. So this is what it is. And yes, it's a long haul. It's expensive. At the same time, it's not waiting. You know, Liberian people don't have that much patience, right? They want to see something happens, you know, it's happening substantively. And for that to be, we have to be on our toes. They call it P's and Q's or whatever it is. But we have to be working around the clock. And to do that, it means so many of us, if not all of us, and I pray all of us, should be on board. When I say all of us, I also mean, you know, perceived or alleged perpetrators. Look, this is a process of justice. It's not a targeted process. We're going for Jala Babu, we will get Jala Babu. If we don't get Jala Babu, then no need. No, it's not that way. So there may be people who may be seeing themselves and saying, well, I know this court, by all means I will go to the court. That's not a bad thing, in my opinion. That's a way of vindicating yourself, because you go there and face justice. If after facing justice, you say, well, look, you're guilty, you say, okay, I serve my term for the sake of my country. For the sake of your country means beyond our generation to generations to come, so that they too will understand that if you came in conflict with the law in Liberia, you will not go with impunity. The law will take its course, and the law will take its course in reality and not just in theory. That's what we're looking for, because we know violence didn't solve this problem, right? We had to go to many peace conferences. People had to negotiate around the table. Our mothers and our sisters themselves had to go the extra mile, do so many things, take so much risk to bring us to where we are. We cannot in any way, you know, not respect the sacrifices they made. We cannot do that. That is the reason why we must bring this process to a closure. And if I were not in this seat, anybody else could be in this seat, I would support it the same way. And I say that because even when the bar decided to take, you know, this thing as, well, there's something that Liberia National Bar should lead. I wasn't paid for the services I rendered. The bar asked me to, you know, render, you know, a small service, lead a committee that would draft, you know, the bill. I did so without pay because I believe in this process, and I continue to believe in it, because I do not think that leaving it as open as it is will now one day bring your grandchild or your great-grandchild to say, I recall fully well that young man over there, his grandpa or great-grandpa was the one that killed my great-grandpa. So I will pay my debt. Since there was no way for my pa or my grandpa to pay his father's debt, I will pay. At that point, we'll have chaos in this country. And that's what we're trying to stop. We got to give people redress. People may not have all that they desire, but definitely something should happen to say, well, okay, I didn't have 100%, but at least I got 80% and I got it well. You know, then our country comes back, resettles, and then all of us understand that no, violence is not the way to go. And anybody thinks that he or she will engage in violence to get political power, to get wealth, to get influence, or whatever, you know, at the detriment of others, that person will think many, many more times and say, it's not possible. Can't do this. You know? But, I mean, it's a conversation, so, you know, it'll be fine. But again, I really want to, you know, emphasize the point that we cannot succeed with all you people in the media. You're so pivotal to this process. I mean, not everything we'll say from the office here will be right, but the way you give it to the Liberian people will make all the difference. So sometimes we may be in error or we may not say it the right way. I mean, we don't expect you to go and say, I will reframe it so the people can be happy. But maybe clarification, so that we're clear on where we're going. I mean, if I said to you, we will come to work here at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we don't leave here until midnight, you can be like, why should people work from 7 to midnight? That's an abuse of their right. But if we explain the reason why, for the first 2 or 3 months, we're staying so long at work because we're multitasking, then the Liberian people understand that. Somebody may say, but maybe we need to help these people to do 1 or 2 other things, I say, you multitasking how? Then we begin to explain, we're doing this and we're doing this. But I can do all the printing for you people. You don't have to be printing, That solves our problem right there. Now, if you offer that, it will not go unnoticed. Because as we said, we want to be transparent. We will then say, look, T-Max called us and told us, I gave you my microphone free for 1 month. We're not paying for it, but it has this much value. So we'll put that in our record that, we had contribution, for this much value. Because at the end of the day, we need to be able to tell Liberian people, from the inception of the process to where we establish the court, it cost us X dollars. The future generation will say, we don't even want to spend that kind of money on court business again. So let's not get into violence. You see what I mean? It's a win-win situation all the way. This is a serious learning curve for Liberia. I think we're getting there. But I can assure you that we will not allow anybody to distract us from this process. There may be condemnations. There may be all kinds of statements that may not be true. We will not pay attention to them so much. If there's a necessity to disabuse the minds of Liberian people on any particular issue, we'll not hesitate. But if we know and we evaluate that this is just distraction, we'll not pay attention. We'll keep going. Because when you derail this process for anything that is meaningless, to get back on track, it'll be difficult. Very difficult. So we focus on what we're doing here. And let me tell you, this place is open to the media. Once you get to Chris, because we have a system, Chris, our media person, get to him, he's organized, get it. We'll go with it. We'll go with it all the way. Chris too and Mema have an obligation to keep their ears on the ground on what's unfolding. And all of us here also have that obligation, but we're not, media specialists. So we hear something, we'll come to them. And because I love to think about things all kinds of ways, this morning I came and said, so Ethiopia Airlines is coming to Liberia. How does that impact our work? You kind of think about it and say, this will help this way or help that way, Because suddenly, if I'm invited to Ethiopia, of course I'm being invited to Ethiopia, right, to go do a piece of job. I can't go to Ethiopia and doing work, and don't say the ties between Ethiopia and Liberia. And if I'm going to say that, I can't say it in a way that, it is in disparity. But what the president said, formally, I got to see the president said this. I have to move in that line, even if I have a little bit of difference, because we are a country, must move together, got to do that. So they're on an obligation to make sure they follow everything. They're not big brothers or big sisters in this business. So if they give me the impression that we know everything and we don't need the help of anybody else, the door is open. They will have to go because they must consult. They must consult and consult seriously. So if I did the same thing too, I don't need anybody's help, it will be foolhardy on my part. The child who asks questions hardly goes astray, and I take that seriously. Yeah.
Okay. So we've come to the end of this conversation, as we also call it. Thanks everyone for coming. I just did a look at a spoon. We got like up to the time the dark ended, 94 comments, 29 shares, and watching 356 added to Real TV. So we got up to 400 persons watching at a particular given time. So the message is across. As we said, we form a partnership. As a matter of fact, Clarence, you made a point, specialized programming. We've talked to 3 radio station management. They're all here. And there's Council, I think you know the backdrop from which we invited these 3 because they've opened their arms to form partnership with us. Thank you once again for coming. And that, thanks for the time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's all getting down on this broadcast. It's been a pleasure discussing the establishment of a War and Economic Crimes Code. So this is the office and is open, and the work has begun. My name is Haji. I say thanks so much for watching.